My ex demanded I keep paying her rent because, in her words, I owe her for the good years. She really thought she could guilt-trip me into funding her lifestyle after she walked out on our relationship like I was some kind of subscription service she forgot to cancel. Hey Reddit, get comfortable, because I never imagined I'd be the guy stuck dealing with a delusional ex who believed breakups came with monthly payments, but here we are. What started as a dumb text from her turned into the most unexpectedly satisfying revenge I've ever delivered in my life. I waited a few lines before dropping this part because, trust me, context matters for what comes next. I 30 male and my ex-girlfriend 29 female had been together for almost 5 years, and for most of that time I genuinely thought we were building something real. Her name is Jenna, and when we first started dating, she was this charming, funny, sarcastic firecracker who made even boring days feel interesting. I fell hard for her because she made me believe I was finally with someone who wanted the same future I did. Turns out, her version of the future was very different from mine. Hers involved climbing the social ladder, showing off on Instagram, surrounding herself with people she thought were higher caliber, and turning our relationship into something she could brag about to her friends. Mine was, normal stability, partnership, mutual respect, love. But let's rewind, because the downfall didn't happen overnight. It started slow, like tiny cracks forming in a wall you think is still solid. Back when we met, Jenna worked part-time as a receptionist while trying to build her influencer presence. I never really cared about that stuff. I actually encouraged her to chase whatever made her happy. But as her follower count grew, so did her ego. Suddenly everything became about aesthetics. Our dates had to be picture-ready. Our living room had to match her brand. She needed new outfits every month to keep up with trends. And somehow every time she wanted something, she spun it into being for both of us. I wasn't rich, not by a long shot, but I had a stable career in IT, made decent money, and she slowly started relying on me more and more for her bills. It's just temporary, she'd say. Once I hit 50K followers consistently, sponsors will cover everything. Spoiler, they didn't. But she kept climbing anyway, and somewhere along the way, she stopped seeing me as a partner, and started seeing me as a stepping stone. Her friends were the first ones to show me how little she respected me. She'd talk differently around them, snobbier, louder, like she was auditioning for a role in a reality show. They'd make backhanded jokes about my job, my car, even my clothes. Jenna could do better, I overheard one of them say once when they thought I wasn't listening. She needs someone with money, not just stability. Jenna laughed. She didn't defend me. She didn't correct them. She laughed. That laugh stayed with me. Still stupidly, I loved her. I kept telling myself she would grow out of the phase, that once she got security in what she wanted, she'd calm down, but she never did. Instead, she started expecting me to pay more. Groceries, utilities, rent, it all slowly stacked until I was covering practically everything. She justified it by saying she had career momentum and needed time. I justified it because I thought relationships meant sacrifice. But the real turning point came a few months before the breakup, when we went to dinner with her influencer friend group, a bunch of people who lived off photography tricks and borrowed luxury. They treated me like a wallet with legs, polite but dismissive. At one point one of the girls said, "Jenna, when you blow up, you can finally upgrade your life. No more basic apartments and basic men." Everyone laughed except me. I looked at Jenna. She didn't defend me. Again, she just sipped her drink and shrugged like the joke didn't matter. After that night, something in me shifted. I didn't say anything yet, but I started paying attention: the late nights out, the brand collab events, the sudden secrecy around her phone. And then came the breakup. She sat me down like she was hosting a podcast episode titled "Why I'm the Victim Here." She said she needed space to grow, that she didn't see us aligning long term, and that she didn't want to feel held back. Held back. After everything I paid for, everything I supported, everything I sacrificed. Held back. She moved out 2 weeks later into a downtown apartment that cost more than both of our old place combined. I found out later her mom co-signed the lease. I assumed that was that breakup, pain, healing, moving on. But no, Jenna wasn't done draining me. 3 weeks after she moved out, I got a text that genuinely made me check twice to see if she was joking. "Hey, rent is due and things are tight right now. Since we were together for years and you said you'd always support me, can you cover it this month? You owe me for the good years." I stared at my screen in absolute disbelief. Owe her? For the good years? The good years I paid for? The good years where I funded her lifestyle, supported her dreams, defended her, fed her, sheltered her, and tolerated her snobby friends? I responded with a simple no. She didn't take that well. She sent a paragraph, then 2 more, then voice messages about how I was abandoning her, how I was a fake man, how I never appreciated her sacrifices, and how she deserved compensation for wasted time. Compensation. Like I was an employer who fired her without a severance package. I blocked her, thought that was the end. But people like Jenna don't vanish, they escalate. The next day she emailed me. The day after that she emailed me again. Then she called from a private number. Then she got her friends to DM me saying I wasn't being a real adult, and shouldn't leave a woman struggling after everything she did for me. They didn't mention that the everything she did amounted to buying throw pillows and complaining about lighting angles. And then she pulled the wildest move yet. She showed up at my job. She actually walked into the lobby fake crying, saying she needed to speak to me because I owed her an explanation. I didn't meet her. I watched through the security camera as she argued with the receptionist, trying to force her way upstairs. Eventually security escorted her out. I was mortified, furious, done, but also something inside me clicked. If she wanted to play games, if she wanted to push, manipulate, embarrass and demand, then she was about to get something far better than rent money. She was about to get exactly what she earned. When I got home after that ridiculous confrontation, I didn't slam the door or throw anything, or have the kind of meltdown my ex apparently expected from me. Instead, I just stood in the middle of my quiet apartment, staring at the floor while her last words kept echoing in my head like a bad song on repeat. You owe me for the good years. The good years. The years where she was emotionally MIA. The years where I paid for nearly everything while she figured herself out. The years where I begged her to communicate like an adult instead of disappearing into social media validation. The years where I picked up the slack, bills, chores, groceries, the emotional weight of two people while she curated her little influencer aesthetic and called it a personality. Yeah, really good years. The more I thought about it, the more that phrase twisted into something almost funny, not because it was actually funny, but because her delusion was so loud it drowned out anything else. I poured myself a glass of water, sat on the couch and let it wash over me. The entitlement, the manipulation, the absolute gall. She had left me, she had moved in with someone else, she had declared herself in a new chapter, and yet here she was, demanding rent money from the man she ghosted emotionally for years. My phone buzzed again. I already knew who it was before I picked it up. Another text from her. Actually no, 10 texts from her, one after another in a rapid stream of desperation, guilt-tripping and entitlement mixed into the world's worst cocktail. I can't believe how heartless you're being. After everything I did for you, you know I can't afford this rent alone. Be an adult. Don't punish me for moving on. You promised to support me. You told me you'd always have my back. Are you really going to leave me homeless? So I guess I was right, you're selfish. You're paying it. Period. I stared at the screen, not even angry anymore, just stunned. Stunned at the reality that someone could rewrite history in their head so deeply they believed their version more than the truth staring them in the face. I set the phone down, intentionally not responding. I wanted to think, not react, not engage, not play the game she was trying to drag me back into. I closed my eyes and let my mind drift backward to the good and the bad, mostly the bad. The fights where somehow everything was my fault even when she initiated them. The birthdays she forgot. The times I spent hours comforting her after she spiraled, because someone online didn't compliment her outfit. The months of doing dishes alone, cleaning alone, supporting us alone while she focused on her mental health. The way she shut down every time I asked for partnership instead of parenting. And then of course the big one, her new boyfriend. The one she swore was just a friend, just someone who understands her creatively, just someone she can talk to. Yeah, I found out just how creative their conversations were when I saw the messages. And even then, even when I confronted her, she cried harder about being judged and cornered than she cried about betraying me. And now she was demanding I fund her new life. Unbelievable. I stood up and paced, not out of anger but out of clarity, because for the first time since the breakup everything felt weirdly simple. I didn't owe her anything. Not money, not comfort, not stability, not loyalty, not a damn thing. She had spent years taking from me, draining me, relying on me like a financial and emotional crutch, and she expected me to keep doing it even after she walked away. I checked my phone again, more texts. Now she'd escalated. She was threatening to call my parents, threatening to contact my boss, threatening to ruin my reputation because people should know the truth about how selfish you are. I actually laughed. Out loud. The first real laugh I'd had in months. Because that's when I realized something important. She wasn't trying to hurt me. She was trying to scare me. The whole thing, the demands, the guilt-tripping, the threats, was just her scrambling for control now that the person who held her life together finally dropped the rope. That wasn't my problem anymore. I sat back down, opened my laptop and pulled up our old lease agreement. She wasn't even on it. Not a single signature. Not a single document tying me to her new apartment. She had moved into a place she couldn't afford with a man she barely knew and assumed I'd keep patching her holes. Not my holes. Not my responsibility. Not my storm. And then, like the universe wanted to give me one last confirmation that I was doing the right thing, I got a message from someone unexpected, her new boyfriend. He didn't say much. Just 5 words. Please help her with rent. Not even a hey. Not even a man-to-man. Just a command from a stranger who was benefiting from the same resources he expected me to provide. It was laughable. Absolutely laughable. And that's when the idea hit me, not out of pettiness, not out of spite, but out of a desire to end this cycle once and for all. She wanted money. She wanted support. She wanted a reminder of what she lost. Fine. I'd send her something. But it wouldn't be money. It wouldn't be help. It wouldn't be anything she was expecting. It would be something better. Something she couldn't twist, manipulate or weaponize. Something final. I cracked my knuckles, sat forward and began planning exactly what I was going to give her. And when I hit send, she was finally going to understand that the good years she kept bragging about were over the moment she decided to throw them away. When I got home that night after dealing with her meltdown over the phone, I couldn't shake the feeling that something else was coming. You ever feel that itch in your brain, like the storm hasn't even started yet? That was me. I kept checking my phone every few minutes, waiting for another wall of texts accusing me, manipulating me, guilt-tripping me the way she always did. But the screen stayed quiet, too quiet, and silence from my ex never meant peace, it meant plotting. I sat in my apartment with the lights off, half watching the TV while replaying every conversation we'd had in the last few weeks, and suddenly all the little details lined up like puzzle pieces I'd never bothered to flip over. All the time she said, "If we ever broke up you'd still help me, right? Or you know you owe me for helping you grow." Or her favorite one, "I was with you when you were nothing." At the time I thought she was just being dramatic. Now I realized she'd been planting seeds, and the rent demand was just the start. Around midnight, as I was finally starting to nod off, my phone buzzed, and her name lit up the screen again. Not calls, just messages, one after another, like she'd finally worked herself into whatever version of rage she believed justified her behavior. I didn't open them, couldn't. I didn't have the emotional strength to read through 10 paragraphs of her rewriting history to make herself the hero. I tossed my phone onto the couch and tried to sleep, but sleep avoided me like it owed me money. My mind ran circles around itself, and the entire time, one thought pulsed behind everything. She really believes I owe her. She really thinks I'm responsible for her life. She really thinks she can demand anything. And the worst part, she thought she had leverage. She thought she had a way to bend me again. The next morning I woke up to the buzzing of my phone nearly vibrating itself off the table. I snatched it up and saw something new, messages not just from her but from her friends. Her friends who never liked me, suddenly had a lot to say. One text from her best friend read, "It's pathetic that you're making her stress about rent. After all she gave up for you." Another one, "You're proving you never deserved her. Do better." And the one that made me laugh because the delusion was Olympic level, "She made you who you are. The least you can do is take care of her until she gets on her feet." On her feet, she had 2 jobs. She just didn't want to work more than 3 days a week because she didn't like feeling tired. That wasn't my problem. My ex meanwhile finally sent the most unhinged message of them all. "If you don't help me I will make sure everyone knows how selfish you really are. I'll tell your family the truth about what you did to me, and trust me they'll take my side." I stared at that last text for a long time. What you did to me. Amazing. She'd somehow twisted the breakup, the one she initiated, into an act of cruelty I committed. I typed one word, "Try." Then I put my phone on Do Not Disturb and got dressed for work. The day went by fine until lunch when I got a call from my mom. I knew immediately that my ex had pulled the trigger on whatever threat she'd been holding on to. I stepped outside, answered the call, and my mom's voice came through with that disappointed tone only moms can hit. "Honey," she said, "your ex just called me." "I figured," I replied. "What did she say?" She said you used her." I laughed, out loud. "She said what?" "She told me she supported you emotionally, financially and personally for years," my mom continued, "and that now you've abandoned her when she needed you." "Mom," I said, "you know that's not true." "I know," she said, and her tone softened. "I lived through those years too. I know exactly who carried who." Relief washed over me. "So you don't believe her?" "Of course not," she said. "But she was crying on the phone, begging me to convince you to help her with rent. Apparently she thinks I can pressure you into it." I groaned. "I'm so sorry she dragged you into this." "Don't apologize," my mom said. "Just tell me you're not actually sending her money." "Not a chance in hell." "Good," my mom said. "Because she's unstable." That was putting it lightly. My mom wasn't done. "And honey," she said something else. "What?" I asked. "She said if you don't help her she's going to come by your place." My stomach tightened. "What?" She said if he won't answer me I'll make him. I rubbed my forehead. "Unbelievable. Do you want your father and I to come stay with you for a few days?" she asked. "No," I replied automatically. "I'm fine." "Okay," she said reluctantly. "But call me if anything happens." "I will." We hung up and I stood there in the cold air thinking. That's when the realization hit, she wasn't going to stop. The rent demand wasn't the end, it was the start. If she truly believed I owed her, then in her mind she'd think she deserved everything. Money, emotional labor, attention, all of it. And if I refused, she'd escalate. She always escalated. That night when I got home from work I triple-checked my locks. I sat down to eat dinner staring at the door every few seconds like I was waiting for it to rattle. It didn't, not that night, but at 6:43 a.m. the next morning it did. A loud sharp knock that shook the doorframe. I froze. Another knock, harder. 3 more rapid fire, as if she wanted the whole building to know she was out there. I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. It was her, in pajamas, hair messy, eyes red like she'd been crying for hours, and her hand was balled into a fist like she was ready to pound again. I didn't open the door. I never opened the door. She knocked again. "I know you're home," she shouted. "Your car is here." I stepped away from the door. My heart hammered, but not out of fear, out of exhaustion. She kept knocking, and knocking, and knocking. "We need to talk," she yelled. "You can't ignore me forever." She knocked harder, the sound echoing down the hallway. A neighbor cracked open his door down the hall. She looked over and glared at him until he shut it quickly. Open the door, she screamed. I didn't. After about 10 more minutes, she finally stopped. Then came the desperate bargaining through the door. Please baby, please open up. I just want to talk. I love you, I miss you. We can fix this. Nothing. You owe me, she whispered next. You owe me everything after what I gave you. I clenched my jaw. That word again. Oh, I finally spoke loud enough for her to hear but calm enough to sting. Go home, she froze. Then, I'm not leaving until you help me. That's your problem, I replied. Not mine. Silence. Then the sound of her footsteps as she walked away, and the moment she was gone a clarity hit me like a truck. This wasn't a temporary problem. This wasn't a rough breakup. This wasn't a rough breakup. This was a pattern, a delusion, a belief that I was her safety net forever, even when she was the one who cut the rope. And suddenly I knew exactly how this story was going to end, and she wasn't going to like it. When I woke up the next morning, sunlight was bleeding through the blinds in thin lines, cutting across the floor like little reminders that the world kept turning even when people acted insane. I sat on the edge of the bed, elbows on my knees, staring at the hardwood like it had answers. The events of yesterday replayed in my head in slow, mocking detail, my ex standing there acting like I owed her rent, like I was some monthly paycheck she'd misplaced, like responsibility was something you could just hand off when life got inconvenient. I checked my phone even though I didn't want to. 10 missed messages from her, 4 from her new guy, apparently trying to act like some kind of alpha protector, 2 from her sister, 1 from an unknown number that I'm 99% sure was her mom pretending she wasn't involved. All of them had the same tone, demanding, assuming, entitled, like they were all sharing one brain cell. I tossed my phone onto the bed and walked to the kitchen, starting the coffee maker more out of muscle memory than consciousness. The place felt quiet in a way I wasn't used to, a good quiet, a free quiet, a quiet that didn't smell like someone else's perfume or sound like someone else slamming cabinets because I didn't read their mind fast enough. Halfway through my coffee my phone buzzed again. I ignored it. Then it buzzed again, and again, and again. I finally caved and checked it, not because I cared but because the noise was making my eyelid twitch. It was her. Of course, we need to talk. No greeting, no apology, no awareness. I didn't respond. A minute later, I'm serious. I'm outside. My stomach tightened, not out of fear but out of pure annoyed disbelief. I walked to the window, pulled the curtain back, and sure enough there she was, pacing the walkway in her overpriced sandals like she owned the building. She looked the exact same as she always had. Hair perfect, makeup perfect, expression ugly. I opened the door but didn't step aside to let her in. She tried to walk past me anyway, like she was entitled to breathing my air. I blocked her with one arm. What do you want? I asked. She scoffed like I was the unreasonable one. We need to talk. Talking didn't go great yesterday, I said. Pretty sure you just screamed and called me cheap. She flipped her hair like she was preparing to monologue. Okay, I overreacted. But you should have given me a chance to explain. Explain what? I asked. How me paying your rent after a breakup is somehow logical, she huffed. You said you'd always take care of me. When we were together, I corrected. That stops once you decide you want to go sleep with someone else. Her jaw tightened. You know things were complicated. No, I said. You complicated them. I just lived through them. She crossed her arms. Look, we had good years. You said they mattered. So yeah, I expect some loyalty after everything I gave you. I actually laughed. Everything you gave me? Yes, she snapped. I supported you emotionally. I was there for you. I helped you become who you are. You cheated on me, I reminded her. Twice. She waved that off like it was a parking ticket. Those were mistakes. But the years before that, the good years? Don't pretend you didn't benefit. I stared at her for a long moment, trying to decide if this level of delusion was natural or learned. Probably learned from her mom, who had the personality of a bad Yelp review. So, I finally said, you want rent? Every month? She rolled her eyes. Obviously, not forever, just until I rebuild. You have a boyfriend. He's not financially stable, she said, like that somehow made me her backup wallet. So you want me to fund your new life with another man? I said flatly. It's not about that, she snapped. It's about fairness. Fairness, I repeated. Yes, you owe me after everything I did for you. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. What did you do for me? She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Nothing real anyway. I was supportive. You yelled at me every time I worked late, because you were ignoring me. I was paying our bills. She ignored that. You're being heartless, she said. You're punishing me because you still have feelings. Trust me, I said. There are no feelings left. She flinched, then quickly masked it with anger. Fine, she snapped. If you're going to be stubborn, I'll take legal action. I blinked slowly. Legal action? Yes, you promised me stability. That's verbal precedent. I couldn't stop myself. I laughed so hard my ribs hurt. That's not how the law works. My cousin said it is. Your cousin sells vape pens from the trunk of his car. She scowled. He knows stuff. No, I said. He absolutely does not. She stepped closer, lowering her voice like she was about to say something profound. If you don't help me, I'll make things messy for you. Messy how? She hesitated. That was her problem, she always started threats she wasn't smart enough to finish. Eventually she hissed, "People will hear things." "Let them," I said. She blinked. "What? Let them hear? Tell the world whatever story you want. I don't care." That threw her completely off. She wasn't prepared for me not to fold. She muttered something under her breath, then stomped back toward the parking lot like a toddler denied candy. When her engine finally sputtered to life and the car reversed down the drive, I closed the door and exhaled, trying to release the last bit of tension she always brought with her like a storm cloud. But I didn't just want to end the conversation, I wanted to end the entitlement, permanently. And that's when the idea hit me, clean, simple, poetic. I grabbed my laptop, sat down at the table and began typing. At first it was just a draft, then it became something better. Something final, something she'd never forget. Because if she wanted compensation, she was about to receive exactly what she deserved, and nothing she expected. Because if she wanted compensation, she was about to receive exactly what she deserved, and nothing she expected. I sat there in my car for a long moment after hanging up, both hands gripping the steering wheel hard enough to turn my knuckles white, letting everything from the last few months filter through me, in one long acidic wave. The breakup, the weeks of silence, the sudden messages, the flirty texts, the crying voicemails, the guilt trips, the "you owe me," the "be a man," the "step up," the entitlement. And now she wanted me to pay her rent like I was her personal bank account she could cash out whenever she felt nostalgic. No, absolutely not. I wasn't her boyfriend anymore. I wasn't her safety net. I wasn't her bailout plan, her therapist, her emotional cushion, or her financial sponsor. And the more I thought about how she'd talked to me like the past obligated me, like the breakup didn't change the dynamic, like my life revolved around her, the more something inside me clicked into place. Not anger, not bitterness, just clarity. A kind of cold, sharp clarity that cut through all the old feelings and left only truth behind. She thought she held leverage over me. She thought nostalgia was a weapon. She thought her tears were currency. She thought calling our relationship good years meant I had a debt to pay. But I remembered those years very differently. She remembered luxury, little trips, surprise gifts, spontaneous nights out, me covering the bills because she was between job opportunities, me being patient when she quit jobs because the boss was rude, the schedule wasn't fair, the environment was toxic, my coworkers don't vibe with me, or whatever other excuse she had lined up for that month. I remembered the first year when we were good, the year she tried, the year she had ambition and kindness and effort. But that version of her slowly faded, replaced by someone who took and took and took until giving wasn't generosity anymore, it was survival. I remembered the nights I came home exhausted and she complained her day was hard, because she barely got 6 hours of sleep. I remembered her saying she wanted stability while refusing to create any. I remembered covering emergencies that weren't emergencies, new phone, new nails, new hair, new clothes, new self-care, new mental reset trips, new everything except accountability. And now she wanted me to pay her rent because she gave me her good years. No. She gave me her convenient years, and she assumed I'd stay the same soft, forgiving idiot she used to mold into whatever she needed. But that version of me died the moment she walked out and then tried to crawl back when she realized life wasn't cheaper on her own. I started the engine and drove home with a decision already carved into my mind. Not revenge, not cruelty, just closure my way this time. When I got home I sat at my desk, opened my laptop and pulled up everything I'd kept buried during our relationship. Screenshots, bank transfers, receipts, messages, conversations, notes. The list was long. Too long. Not because I'd been spying or tracking her, but because I'd documented every major financial hit I'd taken on her behalf, not to use against her but because I needed to keep track for myself. I never expected to need it, but now it was the roadmap to her compensation. If she wanted me to calculate what I owed her, then fine, I'd calculate. But not in the way she wanted, not in the way she imagined, not in the fantasy world she lived in where she was the victim of a man who left her after everything she did for him. I started listing every financial favor I ever did for her. Rent help. Car payment help, phone bill help, emergency vet visit for her cat, flight ticket for her grandmother's funeral, weekend getaways she insisted we needed for our relationship, spa days after fights she started, little expenses, big expenses, recurring expenses, forgotten expenses. I didn't round up, I didn't exaggerate, I didn't add interest or emotional tax, I just listed the truth, the raw numbers. When I finished, the total made me sit back in my chair and exhale a hollow laugh. She had absolutely no idea how much I'd invested. Not because I wanted something in return but because I cared. And the reality was simple, she didn't owe me that money. I didn't want it back. I didn't regret giving it. But if she wanted to turn our history into a debt ledger, then she needed to see the full ledger, not the fantasy where she was the one who sacrificed. I created a document. Clean, professional, itemized. Every single financial help she'd asked for, month by month, year by year. Then I added a second section, one she wasn't expecting. It was a list of all the emotional costs. The nights I talked her down from panic spirals. The days I rearranged my life to support her, the job opportunities I passed on to stay close when she said she couldn't handle long distance, The friendships I lost because she didn't like certain people. The hours of unpaid emotional labor she framed as just listening, when it was really caretaking. I didn't put numbers next to those. There weren't enough zeros in the world. When the document was done, I typed a final header at the bottom. Total compensation you are owed dollars. I attached the document to an email, sat back for a long moment, and then wrote the message in one clean paragraph without pausing. You asked me to compensate you for the good years. I've attached an accurate record of what those years actually look like. This is not a bill. This is not revenge. This is simply the truth. The math shows that you don't owe me, and I don't owe you. We are even. This is the last time we speak. Take care. I hit send. Immediately blocked her everywhere. That should have been the end. But endings aren't clean. Endings drag their feet. Endings echo. The next morning, I woke up to 12 missed calls from unknown numbers. Then a text from a number I didn't recognize. Open the door. It was her. She was standing outside my place, eyes puffy, hair messy, wearing an oversized hoodie like she'd just rolled out of bed or cried all night. I didn't open the door. I didn't even move. I just watched through the peephole as she knocked, then pounded, then cried, then sat on the ground with her knees pulled to her chest. For 15 minutes, then 30, then 45. She wasn't angry, she wasn't screaming, she wasn't blaming me, she was broken, and that was the final piece I needed. Not to feel pity, not to feel guilt, but to feel nothing at all. When she finally stood up, wiped her face and walked away with slow heavy steps, I knew the truth. She didn't want me back. She wanted the version of her own life where she had someone to fall on, someone to depend on, someone to rescue her, someone to blame, someone to carry the weight she refused to pick up. But that someone wasn't me anymore, and it never would be again. The week after I delivered my little package to Rebecca should have felt victorious, but honestly, it felt more like holding my breath underwater, waiting to see whether I'd float back up or get dragged deeper. She hadn't replied. She hadn't called. She hadn't even tried the classic drunk text at midnight routine she used to pull whenever she needed attention. It was complete silence, radio dead silence, the kind that made me wonder if she finally realized the full weight of the mess she'd created, or maybe she was just plotting the next manipulation, the next twist of the knife. That was the thing with Rebecca, just when you think you've seen the end of the game, she's already drawing a new playbook behind your back. But this time the silence wasn't just hers. I'd taken my piece back piece by piece, deleted old photos, packed away the dumb gifts I kept out of habit, cleaned the apartment like I was scrubbing her fingerprints off my life, and for the first time in years I could breathe without the heaviness of her expectations sitting on my throat. But peace never lasts long when a narcissist realizes you aren't their property anymore. The crack in the quiet came on a Wednesday morning, 7:14 a.m. right when I was halfway through my coffee. My phone started vibrating non-stop like it was possessed. First text her, then her again, then a call, then another text, long frantic paragraphs that didn't even load all at once. At first I didn't open any of it. I just stared at the notifications as they multiplied, like watching an infection spread across a screen. 10 minutes, 20, 40. Finally curiosity got the better of me, or maybe it was something darker, something that wanted to see what her world looked like now that she realized I wasn't her personal ATM anymore. I opened the first message, and the second, and the third, and in less than a minute a smile, slow, stunned disbelieving, crept across my face. Because it turned out my package landed harder than I could have predicted. See, Rebecca didn't just want me to pay her rent. She needed me to. Desperately. And I had no idea how bad it actually was until she told on herself in a panic. She hadn't been paying her credit card bills. She'd blown through her savings. Her new boyfriend, the one she swore she deserved after years of my emotional neglect, had moved out 2 months ago. And the apartment she'd bragged about constantly, behind on rent for 3 months. And guess whose name was still on the lease? Not mine, thank God, but her father's. And he had just found out. According to her frantic monologue, he was furious, ashamed, and had told her she had 1 month to move out because he was done covering for her reckless, selfish lifestyle. Her words, not mine. The best part, she blamed me. Me. Somehow in her upside-down world it was my fault she couldn't keep up with the rent on the apartment she fought me over when we broke up. You abandoning me ruined everything. I wouldn't be in this mess if you helped like you should. You owe me because I wasted years with you. Years she wasted. Interesting. Because I could recall quite a few moments where the only thing she contributed to our relationship was chaos. But the icing on the cake, she tried to use the exact words that had inspired my revenge in the first place. After all the good years I gave you, this is how you repay me. I laughed so hard my stomach hurt. Because that was when I realized something. Rebecca didn't want rent money. She wanted ownership. She wanted control. She wanted me tied to her life financially, emotionally, mentally. She wanted to guarantee that even after she dumped me she'd still have a leash around my neck. And now that leash was gone, she was spiraling. But the real twist didn't hit until she finally sent the message that changed everything. You need to call my father and explain this. Tell him you're helping me. He thinks I'm irresponsible. I actually choked on my coffee reading that. This woman wanted me, the ex she discarded, to call her father and take responsibility for her lies. It was so insane that I reread it 3 times just to make sure the words weren't hallucinations. She texted again. Seriously, call him. Tell him you're paying. And that was the moment something shifted inside me, not anger, not sadness, not even satisfaction. Clarity. Absolute clarity. This wasn't a conversation. This wasn't an argument. This wasn't a relationship that needed closure. This was a trap. A trap designed to drag me back into the role she'd built for me. Caretaker, provider, emotional sponge. Her safety net. But I wasn't her safety net anymore. I wasn't her anything. And the fact that she couldn't process that was exactly why she was falling apart. I finally responded. Just 6 words. I'm not your solution anymore. 10 seconds later she called. I declined. She called again. I declined. She called 4 more times. I blocked her. The explosion didn't stop there. She emailed. She DM'd me from backup accounts. She even left a voicemail on my work phone, crying so hard she could barely form words. But it wasn't guilt in her voice. Not remorse. Not regret. It was fear. Pure desperate fear. The fear of losing the last person who ever tolerated her chaos. Even after she abandoned me. Even after she blamed me for her mistakes. Even after she tried to squeeze money out of me like I was a debt she was collecting. She wasn't mourning me. She was mourning the end of her power over me. And when that realization settled in, the weight finally lifted off my chest, replaced by something I hadn't felt in a long time: freedom. I stepped outside, breathing in the morning air, letting the sun hit my face like a reset button. And for the first time since this entire mess began, I felt it deep in my bones. This story wasn't about her anymore. It was about me. When the dust finally settled after everything I'd done, the letter to her landlord, the screenshots, the bank statement printouts, the absolute surgical cutting of every single lifeline she thought she still had to me, you'd think the story would have ended. Like she'd finally disappear, fade out, move on, find another target, another safety net to latch onto. But that's not how people like her operate. They cling to the debris of your life long after the bridge has burned, long after the smoke clears, long after the ground beneath their feet collapses. And they cling not because they love you or miss you or value you, but because losing access to you feels like losing oxygen. And she was suffocating. Hard. I didn't block her number right away because I wanted to see what she would do when everything finally caught up to her. And she didn't disappoint. The messages started with shock, pure unfiltered disbelief that I'd finally stopped being the ATM, the emergency exit, the emotional cushion she thought she was entitled to. "What did you do?" she wrote. "You ruined everything. They're evicting me. They said I lied on my forms. They saw the rent transfers. They're saying I committed fraud." I read it once, twice, then set the phone down and went back to eating my dinner. Broccoli and chicken, nothing fancy, no wine, no celebration, just calm, quiet certainty, the kind you feel when you finally do the thing you should have done years ago. 10 minutes later she sent another message. "I know it was you. You still owe me. You can't just cut me off like this." Owe her? Owe her? For what? The good years, the support, the love, the years where I worked 2 jobs so she could find herself, the years where she decided finding herself meant sleeping in until noon, switching career paths every few months, blaming the world for every failure and treating my stability like her personal safety harness. Those years, or the breakup, the one she initiated, because she wanted space, wanted freedom, wanted to explore her options, yet somehow wanted me to keep paying her way the entire time. I didn't respond, not because I was trying to be cold, but because nothing I said would have mattered. She wasn't looking for a conversation. She was looking for control, and she'd already lost it. 2 hours later she tried a different angle. "Please, I'll lose everything. I can't do this. I need you." That one hit differently, not because I believed her, but because it was the first honest thing she'd said in months. She didn't need me. She needed what I provided. And the moment she lost access to it, she didn't know who she was anymore. I let that sit. No response. Then came the rage. The full, unfiltered, scorched earth rage. "You're a monster. How dare you do this to me after everything I gave you? You're heartless. You're cruel. No wonder I left you. You're pathetic." That one made me laugh. Honest to God, laugh. Out loud. Pathetic? Heartless? Cruel? After everything she took from me emotionally, mentally, and financially? After everything she built her life on while using me as the foundation? I didn't reply to that one either. That night my phone buzzed 83 times. 83. Like a fire alarm that refused to shut off. Calls, texts, voicemails, even emails. Nothing but desperation, entitlement, fury, bargaining, insults, apologies, chaos. An entire emotional hurricane blowing itself apart in real time. She wasn't unraveling because she loved me. She was unraveling because she finally realized I was no longer in the palm of her hand. The next morning I woke up to a voicemail that started with heavy breathing and ended with her saying, "I know you're reading everything. I know you're there. You're doing this because you want me to beg. Well, congratulations. I'm begging." She thought that would break me. It didn't. It freed me. I didn't listen to the rest. I didn't need to. Because something inside me had shifted permanently. The part of me that used to care about pleasing her, supporting her, fixing her, carrying her, saving her, all of that was dead now. That day I finally blocked her number. All of them. Socials too. Email filters. Hard block. Silence. Actual silence this time. And God, it felt clean. The kind of silence that feels like you're standing somewhere high up with clear air and distance and perspective, like you can finally breathe your own oxygen instead of what someone else siphoned off you. But the universe wasn't done yet. 2 days later, I got a call from an unknown number. Normally I'd ignore it, but something told me to answer. It was her mother. Her mother and I were never close, but she wasn't cruel. She wasn't manipulative. She wasn't anything like her daughter actually. She told me everything, her mom said, voice shaking. Well, her version of everything. I almost laughed. Almost. She said you betrayed her mom continued. That you turned her life upside down, that you're the reason she's being evicted. Is that what she said? I asked. Yes, her mom said. But I don't believe her. I stayed silent. I know my daughter, her mother whispered. I know how she is. I know how she treats people. I know how she uses people. And I know she did something to make you snap. That one caught me off guard. She told me you owe her mom continued. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why did she think that? I exhaled through my nose. Because I let her, I said. For years. There was a long quiet pause on the other end. Well, her mother finally said. I hope you don't anymore. I don't. Good, she said. She needs to learn what it feels like to stand on her own 2 feet. Another pause. Then she added, almost like she hated herself for saying it, and she never will if you keep catching her. For a moment I didn't know what to say. Something about hearing that from her mother, someone who'd spent a lifetime dealing with the same emotional black holes I did, hit harder than any fight or apology ever could. Thank you for calling, I said. I don't know what happens next for her mom continued. But I hope whatever happens next for you is better. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time staring at the wall, letting those words settle into the space she used to fill. Better. It felt possible. For the first time in a long time it felt possible. Later that week, I got a letter in the mail, handwritten, sloppy, from her. She must have written it before I blocked everything. Or maybe she stalked out my parents to find my address again. Inside was a single sheet of notebook paper filled with messy ink and smeared spots where she clearly cried while writing it. The letter wasn't angry, it wasn't manipulative, it wasn't demanding, it was defeated. I don't know who I am without you, she wrote. Maybe that's my fault, maybe it's yours, maybe it's both, but I never thought you would actually stop loving me. I folded the letter once, twice, 3 times, then set it in a drawer not to keep, not to revisit, just so I wouldn't be tempted to throw it away in anger instead of clarity. I didn't respond. I didn't reach out. I didn't call. Because nothing in that letter was an apology. It was grief for losing access to me, not grief for what she did to break us, and that difference matters. 2 days later her sister messaged me, long message apologizing for her behavior, saying she'd always known her sister took advantage of me, thanking me for everything I did for her. She's hurting, the sister wrote, but she needed this. I didn't reply to that either, because I wasn't the solution anymore. I wasn't the partner, I wasn't the wallet, I wasn't the emotional crutch, I wasn't the comfort zone she could retreat into whenever life didn't go her way. I was just done. And not the angry, explosive kind of done, the final kind. The kind where you walk out of the burning building and don't look back. Weeks passed, then a month, then 2. The world didn't fall apart. Mine didn't either. I slept better. I ate better. I worked better. I lived better. My apartment felt bigger. My mind felt clearer. My life felt mine. And one night while sitting alone on my couch eating takeout and watching some dumb action movie on my TV, it really hit me that she had no idea who I was without her control. No idea what I was capable of. No idea what peace looked like on me. And that was the real ending. Not the eviction. Not the screaming texts. Not the letter. The ending was the silence. The ending was the freedom. The ending was the moment I realized that the version of me she used to manipulate doesn't exist anymore. And that was something she could never take back. In the end, the funniest part wasn't that she expected me to bankroll her life forever. It was that she genuinely believed she still played a role in mine. Watching her reaction when she finally realized I'd closed that door for good, that was the real payment she'd earned. No yelling, no dramatic speeches, no second chances, just a clean line drawn in a place she never expected me to put one. And as I walked away, her messages blowing up my phone for the last time, it finally hit me that she wasn't the chapter I regretted. She was the lesson I should have learned sooner. Now she's just someone staring at a future she thought I'd fund, holding a truth she can't spin. I don't owe her a single thing anymore. Not money, not comfort, not presence. Nothing.